So here we have the brand new 2026 TDC LR Tech Beast Gohan. We did only manage to pull the one copy, so he is at 55% level 1 links. So we're going to be seeing how he does as a 55% unit and just giving him a first look. This is probably one of the stronger teams you can run him on. He does, of course, have his own 250, 220 lead, which is okay. You've got some really good units on there. Tech Birdcoo's coming out soon. The AGL Gohan, Orange Piccolo, etc., etc. But as a full lead, it's not the best, I'll be honest. There's some good units there, but it's not quite there just yet, which is why I'm hoping for a Part 2 LR Orange Piccolo. Outside of that, running him on Daimo's Goku team, I think is a much better shout. So I am doing this as a precursor, so we are going to be taking on SSJ4 Daima Goku. I plan to take this guy against everyone, or just all the top enemies in the game, to really see how he does in this game. So this will be a precursor to that. So links are level 1. We do have pretty much everything active with the AGL Gohan. And Ultimate Gohan, or Beast Gohan, is on 564k in terms of attack stat, 331k in terms of defense. He does start with Ki plus 7 and 350% attack and defense. He does have 58% damage reduction along with guard, and then 58% attack and defense and 10% damage reduction for allies whose name include Piccolo as well, which Orange Piccolo, of course, being the main unit that can benefit from that support, which I wouldn't say as far as has revived Orange Piccolo, but it's definitely giving him a new lease of life. So I'm a big fan of that support he does give to Orange Piccolo, which is another reason why I do hope that Part 2 is an LR Orange Piccolo, because not only does a new one benefit from that support, but then I'm hoping an Orange Piccolo could somehow support the new Beast Gohan, whether that's Gohan units, whether that is full power units, Bond of Boston, Decide Point, Trusted Will, Connected Hope, any of those kind of categories, or specifically just Gohan. I hope there's an Orange Piccolo for Part 2 that does that. So on Super Attack on 18 key, he does raise attack and defense by 58% for 1 turn. 12 key is 30% attack for 4 turns. We're starting with just over 30 mil, which, one thing I will say about this Beast Gohan, and of course more so apparent because he is at 55%, is his out-and-out Super Attack numbers aren't that high. Which usually, if it was a unit who had, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 super attacks all in 1 turn, wouldn't be a problem. You know, would not be a problem, because altogether you're looking at like 100 mil over. So it ends up kind of balancing out compared to a unit who does like 60 plus mil on 1 super attack and then maybe has a chance at another one and can do that kind of damage. Kind of like SSJ4 Daima Goku, for example, but it's that times 10. However, he has another outlet which, instead of course being loads of additionals, is his counters, which, do not get me wrong, his counters can be great. Especially if the counters is in slot 2 or slot 3, because in slot 2 or slot 3, you'll have that 58% attack and defense buff from the 18 key super. You hit the additional, especially if you hit another one. You've got the 30% attack raise for 4 turns off the 12 key. The counters get a massive, massive buff, and you can do quite a lot of damage, especially if you do have that 5 crit at 55% popping off, skill orbs, or even better, you have dupes, and he's hitting crit counters. We all know from Super Vegetos in years and years of Dokkan how important those crit counters can be and how much damage those can do. But it does mean his overall damage is a little bit misleading on face value, because just naturally from supering once or twice, then getting the counters in, he does a lot extra than, say, what his initial face value super attack actually does. However, and this is where the catch-22 comes in. Now, this doesn't always happen, can be also dependent on RNG, but a lot of the attacks recently in the events anyway, apart from, again, on the odd occasion depending on RNG in the rotation, but primarily more often than not, the attacks an enemy hit you with are typically between slot 0, slot 1. So you have a counter unit whose initial super attacks do not do a lot of damage, especially at 55%. As we saw, you're looking at, I think, just over 33 mil, and that was with 24 key. If you have dupes, of course, that's going to range. I've seen a Rainbow one do over 40, near an 50 mil, which is obviously a lot better, But considering a lot of those attacks are typically nowadays, more often than not, coming in slot 0 to slot 1, you want your counter unit to obviously counter. However, even with the 58% damage reduction and guard, because Gohan's passive is, to be fair, quite short, quite minuscule, and that's all he gets, he's not built to be a slot 1 unit. He's a slot 2, slot 3 unit. That is where you can maximize his damage output as a counter unit and get the attack buffs, which is great. You know, we've seen it before with Super Vegetos, whether that's the, you know, AGL one to the Fizz one to more recently, and probably one of the best ones, the TEQ LR from the 10th anniversary. But then if all those attacks were in slot 0 to slot 1, you're not really maximizing damage. What was he on now? 948k attack stat, still 398 in terms of defense. So we'll see what he's putting out now. So it does become a little bit of a catch-22. So he does end up, and sometimes can potentially, sometimes more often than not, miss out on quite a bit of damage, which means he's not providing that much damage output in one turn. And again, especially with lack of or no dupes. Now, if all those attacks are in slot 2 or slot 3, fantastic. Because then you super attacked, you've got your attack buff, you potentially hit the additional, you've got another one, you hit an additional from dupe system, you've got another one, and then you counter galore, fantastic. Gohan can actually do a ton of damage, like a lot of damage. So again, that initial super attack on face value doesn't seem like a lot. So we're up to 39.4 now, which isn't too bad. But then if all those super attacks, or sorry, those attacks are in slot 0 to slot 1, you lose out on a lot of damage, considering he's not doing too much on his initial super attacks anyway. So you see what I'm saying, where it becomes kind of a catch-22? I mean, we're going to see what he takes on super attack now. This is before SSJ4 Daimogoku's buff. Cool. I kind of expect you to take nothing here. But in terms of being a counter unit, can actually really thrive in slot 2 or slot 3. It's just typically with counter units, or maybe it's just something we've come accustomed to, and I maybe, you know, thought of that as well. We kind of want a counter unit to be an amazing slot 1 unit and just soak up all those attacks while also countering for damage, which Gohan isn't built for, unfortunately. Then when activating his active skill, or when attacking with 18 or more ki, which we've done consistently the last couple turns, he gets an extra 350% attack. Attacks are effective against all types, which is great, because then there's never any downside to his damage, and he has a guaranteed additional super. So that means no matter what, he's doing a super, guaranteed additional 12 ki. And again, it can kind of also help you maximize your damage output, especially with the counters in slot 2 or slot 3, with those attack buffs. But then also, what I will say is that is the only stats, the only attack and defense this Gohan gets is the 350 in base, the 350 on active or 18 or more ki, taking him up to 700%, which just isn't a lot overall in 2026. Especially when units are getting that, and then damage reduction, maybe some extra with the guard, maybe a little bit of dodge, you know, and doing a lot more. Whereas Gohan, his passive is probably one of the shortest passive skills I've seen in the game in years. And I think the major disappointment, and I think the major part that makes him underwhelming, is for the fact it's two things, and I think they're really obvious. Number one, it's a Beast Gohan. We expect Beast Gohan, especially being such a hype character, and actually not having that many units in the game, to be essentially just really, really good and really, really hype, which they definitely got with the animations. I think they're some of the cleanest Dokkan originals in the whole game. I don't think Beast Gohan's ever going to look better. Probably going to die here, but that's okay. But also it's a TDC LR, and it just doesn't really feel like one, especially when we've got TURs like Cooler and Deborah beginning this year. Now, the other thing Beast Gohan does get is Ki +2 up to 16, which I'm not going to lie, as you can see his Ki here. Getting 16 Ki on an LR, huge. It's great. It means you'll never have Ki issues. Not that I've really noticed them anyway, but just kind of having that as essentially never an issue. It's just a nice thing to have. And especially because it's also attacks performed. So it doesn't have to be super attacks. It can be additional normals. Not that he really has much room to get any, unless you include hidden potential system. And then when receiving a normal attack, which you've talked a lot about, he will counter with tremendous power for 3 turns from the character's entry. Then afterwards will counter with ferocious power, starting from the 4th turn from the character's entry. So the damage does change a little bit, yes. But either way, that's where funny enough, a lot of his damage output is coming from is that first initial super attack, hitting the additional, getting the second attack buff for what, 4 turns, and then hitting as many counters as possible. Which, again, depending on the event, depending on what enemy you're taking on an RNG, but a lot of the time recently it has been slot 0 to 1. A lot of those will be coming from your counters damage-wise. So I think overall, his damage can be a little bit misleading, but I think it's because of how much RNG is involved. I know that can be the same can be said for, you know, additional super type units. Even just take the LR final form, Call It Easier, which is coming out soon. However, that is all tied to his passive. You know, those could pop, those could potentially not pop, where the counters, for example, if all of SSJ4 Daimogoku's attacks are primarily just in slot 1 and there's always like 2, maybe 3 at a push in slot 2 or slot 3, and you're like, well, I can't really maximize his damage too much because you can't put him in slot 1, where the additional supers, you're just waiting for the game to pop. You're waiting for that coin to flip, if that makes sense. Whereas kind of like, well, I don't have no option here. I'm not relying on the coin flip to actually get those counters. I just have to kind of lose them. So I think that's kind of where it's a little bit jarring when it does come to Beast Gohan's counters, which I do get. But I do think, as I said, his damage is a little bit misleading, because even at 55% right now, we're seeing him drop just over 30 mil. Then we're seeing 20 something mil on the additional super, which takes him up to a total of over 50 million there. And then you've got the counters to add on top of that. So you're going anywhere from, you know, solid amounts of damage to actually pretty good damage. And then when you factor in dupes, especially rainbowed, and again, I've used the Beast Gohan rainbow, his damage output is actually pretty good. But again, that's if you're hitting all the counters. So what I will say overall is I don't think Beast Gohan is as bad as people make him out to be. I definitely don't think he's a bad unit. I do think he should and could have been a lot better, 100%. Especially, and this is where context is key, being a Beast Gohan, considering we've only got one other playable in the game and he was the best unit in the game for about almost 2 years. And the second one we get with Dokkan original animations, nowhere near. People are saying this guy's not even a top 10 LR, like literally just outside, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of like, well, you're the brand new LR in the game, you're Beast Gohan, you should be easily hitting the top 5. But then also being a TDC LR and just feeling a little bit underwhelming as well, especially when it kind of feels like he's on par, if not worse, than some of the releases we've had this year that are TURs, like Dokkan Fest standard monthly TURs, I don't think should be happening. So while I do think they fumbled with him, while I do think he should have been a lot better, while I do think he's really underwhelming, I definitely still wouldn't say he's bad. But we do have his active skill ready, which can be activated from the 4th turn, which is always good active skill conditions, and he will raise attack by 580% temporarily, cause ultimate damage to the enemy, gain 100% defense, and for 1 turn, all allies will be able to survive KO attacks for 1 turn, which the damage output is going to help him not only do more damage and super, also help with those counters, and the extra defense will help him out a little bit as well, which we're definitely not going to turn our nose up at, especially with the 58% damage reduction and God. So let's pop this active skill right now.
I'll end it right here. Special Beam Cannon!
Some really good damage done, and that it wasn't even with a crit. So now he's juiced up. I mean, 5.5 on the attack, 2.98 I think that is on the defense, which is looking a hell of a lot better. I mean, we might as well pop this as well. See the difference between the Dokkan original versus, you know, the actual just straight rip from Superhero. And again, that's one of the biggest selling points of this Beast Gohan is these animations are probably some of the best in the whole game. A lot of people, myself included, I don't think Beast Gohan has ever looked so good. Like, don't get me wrong, he looks amazing in Superhero. I still think these look great. But the Dokkan original version of him, sensational, man. Absolutely sensational. So we're now on turn 5, which means SJ4 Diamond Goku does have his attack buff, which of course throughout the whole of this he survived normals. He survived the super attack on the way of getting back here, which I kind of expect because this is, you know, this is from the 11th anniversary. But what I will say, I have seen on the socials anyway, but I had to see it for myself, which we will get to. I need to see how Beast Gohan tanks some of the more harder hitting super attacks in the game. Because stats wise, he just doesn't have a lot. Don't get me wrong, the defense he has now is actually pretty solid, especially with the damage reduction guard and then post super. However, this is active skill turn. This is 55%. This is only going to be here for one turn. And one thing I have kind of noticed already using him in the 2 days I've had him is at 55%, it is very, very noticeable that he kind of needs some dupes against certain enemies in the game right now, which has never been something foreign in Dokkan. But for this to be that apparent on a unit that has just dropped, and again is a TDC LR that is not even a week old, I don't think it should be that much of almost a necessity for him to really need dupes now. Like, I have watched this Beast Gohan in the exact same event against the exact same enemy in the exact same phase. My one-on-one rotation, a rainbow on the another. I have watched my one take almost 500k on a super against that new cell max, to then the friend one in the exact same spot with the exact same amount of super attacks, the only difference being rainbow, then take double digits. So dupes are a big thing for this Beast Gohan already, which I don't feel like should be the case. Like, of course, there should be a difference with dupes, naturally. But they shouldn't almost feel needed. Not yet. Nowhere near yet. And I think that's the one thing outside of kind of the underwhelming hype with this unit of being a beast and a TDCLR is the fact that he's just come out. If you're at 55%, and even with dupes, obviously it will take naturally a little bit longer, is how is this Beast Gohan gonna age if he's already feeling underwhelming as is? Is he going to be dead in like 6 months time already? Which is kind of crazy to say because it could possibly happen. But one thing I will say is I don't think he's bad. And I don't even say this in a bad way because people use it in a bad way. I just think he's okay. He's mid. His damage output can be great. I think 55% is glaringly obvious, which I really don't like. The Piccolo support is nice. I hope he gets support with a Part 2 LR Orange Piccolo to essentially give it back to him. Damage output can get to good lengths. It's just a bit misleading. Defensively is solid-ish, but can be caught and found out. And also his 220, 250 lead isn't that great either, but you can run him outside of that, and there are easy A's coming. But I believe this unit should have been way more, and having him at 55% versus probably 2 dupes to Rainbow, it's too glaringly obvious. And he hasn't even been out for that long. It's literally been a few days. But that's my thoughts on Beast Gohan. We're going to be putting through the ringer very, very soon, but let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, have a great day, and peace.